Hi, welcome back to this Tuesday edition of Focal Point on AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. Great to have you in the conversation today. Now, as you are aware, today is the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's classic Gettysburg Address. I mean, that would have to be in the top 5 of the most famous speeches that have ever been delivered, would probably be the most famous speech ever delivered on American soil. I mean, a lot of other strong competitors, but that's one that clearly stands out from the crowd. And Abraham Lincoln delivered it 150 years ago today. Now they're having, obviously, the commemoration of it today. And President Obama made a deliberate choice not to go. And people have wondered about that. Why did President Obama stay away from Gettysburg? I think I have a suggested answer to that question. You know, because, and it's an interesting question because Barack Obama sort of patterned himself after Abraham Lincoln. He announced his candidacy for the presidency in Springfield, Illinois, President Lincoln's hometown. He took his oath of office twice on the same Bible that Abraham Lincoln used. So he very deliberately seeking to evoke memories of President Abraham Lincoln in his own career. And here, the most famous moment, perhaps, in Abraham Lincoln's public political career, he chooses to ignore, he chooses to bypass, and he says, well, it's because I've got to work on the website. Remember, this is the guy that just several days ago said, hey, I'd love to fix that thing, but I don't write code. So President Obama admitted that there's not a single solitary thing that he knows how to do to fix the website, but for some reason, that's a good enough excuse for him to skip the Gettysburg event. Now, we know he played golf on Sunday for the 151st time, went from the golf course to a basketball game, University of Maryland, where he was booed, by the way. Folks booed him there when he was spotted or showed up on the Jumbotron, whatever. So it was not and he even stuck his fingers in his ears to sort of let the people know what he thought of their opinions of him and his conduct in political office. But anyway, obviously, he's got time out of his busy schedule with the website. I mean, the website was in just as bad a shape Sunday as it is today. So why could he get away for golf and basketball on Sunday and cannot get away today to commemorate the Gettysburg Address? Well, I think I've got the answer for you. And to set that up, I'm going to play 2 clips that represent excerpts from the Gettysburg Address. You might have already heard about this, but I want you to hear this and see this for yourself if you're watching on television or tuning in through our audio streaming at afr.net, audio and video streaming there, which, by the way, means you can access our program anywhere you want. We have apps for the iPhone, the iPad, and the Android. That's how I stayed in touch with the program last week when I was homesick. Just called up the AFR Talk app on my iPhone, listen right where I was. So I encourage you to get that. You can track the Focal Point. You can listen to AFR Talk anywhere, on the move, on the go with those apps. We've also got the podcast, and we've got video segments loaded up on our website almost right away after they've taped and in the can. Anyway, I forgot where I was. Where was I going with this? So anyway, I want you to see this and hear this for yourself. Now Ken Burns, you're familiar with Ken Burns. He's the one that produced the famous documentary series on the Civil War. He's done other great ones on baseball and on the Great Depression. He's a fabulous documentarian. And very gripping. The one he did on the Civil War, very, very gripping. Debbie and I had an opportunity on vacation to go visit the Civil War battlefield at Shiloh. Went all over that place. Very sobering to visit these World War places. I've been on battlefields, been to Gettysburg, and that's a very moving and kind of sobering place to visit. But at any rate, what Ken Burns is doing is he's preparing a documentary on the Gettysburg Address. And he's got a website devoted to this project, and people can record their own version of the Gettysburg Address. You can record your own version of the Gettysburg Address, and you can send it into him, and he will post it. So he's posting every version of the Gettysburg Address that anybody wants to send in. You can record it in a public library. You can record it on your iPhone. You can record it at your computer. You can record it in a studio, and he will upload it to the website. And your name and all that will be right there on the website, your recitation of the Gettysburg Address. Now, Ken Burns has made available on the website a PDF version of the Gettysburg Address. So you can download it, you can open it up, and you can either memorize it or you can read it right into the camera. Now, the first soundbite I'm going to play for you, this is a soundbite. This is one of the versions of it that's on the website, produced or recorded by a guy named Fred Adams. Now, Fred Adams is not anybody I'd ever heard about. He's not anybody famous, but he is the founder of the Utah Shakespeare Festival. That's how he identifies himself on the videos. He's just an ordinary guy. He's out there in Utah, loves Shakespeare. He helped form a festival to produce the works of Shakespeare right there in the state of Utah. So he recorded his version of the Gettysburg Address, and I'm just going to play about the last, 20 seconds or so of it, 30 seconds of it, which is what I'll play of President Obama's version of the Gettysburg Address. So listen carefully as Fred Adams recites the tail end of the Gettysburg Address.
That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain. That this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom. And that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth.
Okay, so that's Fred Adams, Utah Shakespeare Festival, recording his version of the Gettysburg Address. Now listen very carefully. Here is President Obama's version from the same website. Here is President Obama's recorded version of the Gettysburg Address. Listen carefully and see if there is something missing.
That we here highly resolve these dead shall not have died in vain. That the nation shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
Okay, what you heard, what you didn't hear in President Obama's version is the phrase under God. He did not say the words under God. He didn't say this nation under God shall experience a new birth of freedom, but the nation shall experience a new birth of freedom. Left God out of the Gettysburg Address, dumped God out of the Gettysburg Address, kicked him to the curb. Now here is, and this is very deliberate on President Obama's part. There isn't any question this was intentional. It was deliberate. It was not accidental. Now there are 5 handwritten versions of the Gettysburg Address that are circulating, and 2 of them do not contain the words under God in the written text. However, every historian, every stenographer that was present there at the time, everybody in the crowd remembers very clearly that Abraham Lincoln said under God. Now, he might have added it spontaneously to the Gettysburg Address, but there is absolutely zero question, none, nada, zip, zero, zilch. There is zero question that President Lincoln actually uttered the words under God, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom. That's what Lincoln said. Here's from the Daily Caller today, just a couple of paragraphs. Historians do believe that Lincoln honed the address in later drafts after he delivered it, but there is little disagreement about whether Lincoln uttered the words under God when he spoke at Gettysburg. Quote, every stenographic report, that is people writing down his speech word for word, every stenographic report, good, bad, and indifferent, says, quote, that the nation shall under God have a new birth of freedom, writes historian William F. Barton. There was no common source from which all the reporters could have obtained these words but from Lincoln's own lips at the time of delivery. So it could be like George Washington added the phrase, so help me God, when he took the first oath of office. So it may be that President Lincoln, spur of the moment, under a moment of inspiration, added the phrase under God to the Gettysburg Address. But here is the point. Abraham Lincoln said it, and President Obama did not. And so the question is why? Why would President Obama deliberately omit the phrase under God? By the way, we'll take your phone calls, 888-589-8840, 888-589-8840, if you want to weigh in on what we are talking about here. But now there's no question that this is deliberate, and I think this is why This is why President Obama did not go to Gettysburg. President Obama did not go to Gettysburg today because he had kicked God to the curb. He had kicked God out of the Gettysburg Address. He dumped him right out of Lincoln's most famous speech, and he did not want to have to answer awkward questions about why he had dumped God from the Gettysburg Address, why he had deliberately insulted the faith of 300 million Americans, stuck a thumb in their eye, and misquoted a speech that many of us learned and memorized in grade school. And so to me, this has got to be deliberate. Now, Ken Burns is out there saying, no, he read the version that I asked him to. Well, that's just absurd. President's not going to read a version that omits God unless that's what he wants to do. He's not going to do it. He's not going to insult 300 million Americans just because a producer of a documentary asked him to do it. He's the president of the United States. Just because the documentarian asked him to do it doesn't mean he's obligated to do it. This is intentional on the president's part. He knew that those words were in the Gettysburg Address. There's no way he didn't know that. There's no way this was not deliberate and intentional. So to me, this is just more evidence of President Obama's anti-Christian bigotry. He is a Christophobic bigot. He has an intolerance. He has a dislike. He has an animus toward Christianity, toward the Christian foundations of this country. Now, he honors Islam all the time. Ramadan dinners in the White House, extols the wonders of Islam and its contributions to American history all the time. But when it comes to Christianity, it's a completely different story. Now, here's the deal. You go to that website, everybody that recorded a version of the Gettysburg Address on Ken Burns' website, every single solitary person said the words under God except for the President of the United States. So he's the one who's dumped God from the Gettysburg Address. And again, it's deliberate. And we're seeing that hostility toward Christianity played out every single day in the United States military. He is the commander-in-chief. The reason that Christians are relentlessly harassed, marginalized in the military is because President Obama wants it that way. Focal Point AFR Talk, back in 2.
Hello,